before TMS? Well, I've had a really amazing life in a way. I've always sought to live a normal, happy life, a successful life, to pursue passions and dreams and everything that you normally would. But what I would say is that underlying that was a persistent and sort of unmoving depression that was there from about 16, due to certain traumatic events, sort of in my mid-teens, and I think I know how I see it is I sort of contracted this illness of clinical depression. Then I started to get the symptoms back then, and going on, they kind of came and went, but they were always there. So I still went to college, did my GCSEs, went to college, went to university, travelled a lot, and about a year in total, and worked in various different sectors. I worked in the NHS as well as for a year in mental health. But again, it was just underlying that was this disruptive depression that was always there and would get worse at times when it was when life became more difficult, I suppose more stress. The symptoms would get more severe to the point of being completely disruptive. When the depression got a lot worse, I came back from a trip, and usually you have normal holiday blues, but because of the underlying clinical depression, it became really powerful almost. And I stopped being able to sort of form sentences or think. The illness of depression, of major depressive disorder, clinical depression, it's the same thing. The illness of depression kind of shuts down your cognitive abilities to socialise, to have fluid conversations with people, even to sometimes look people in the eye. So when depression got a bit more severe and more disruptive, I would avoid eye contact. I wouldn't want to talk to people. I wouldn't want to go out. I felt like I wasn't going to gain anything from it. I wasn't going to gain any pleasure from doing so. I avoided doing things I love doing. Just the pleasure you get from talking to people, going out, all the normal things, just diminishes, dampens, the illness dampens that down. It makes it very difficult. Again, I probably would describe it best as you don't really see the point. There's nothing to be gained from doing those things. What led me to Magvita TMS was I happened upon the TMS being mentioned in a podcast, on a YouTube podcast, and it was an American comedian being interviewed by Joe Rogan, the podcast that he regularly does. He happened to be a guest. He happened to talk about his clinical depression that he'd had from his childhood, where he had sort of a traumatic childhood. That had carried, his depression had been underlying and carried through. I really resonated with that because I felt that I had too had a traumatic incident a few years in mid-teens. I felt like I'd had the same thing as he had. I'd still carried on. I'd still tried to be as successful as I could, like he had. So he's considerably more successful, being a very famous comedian. But he always had this underlying, and he said that the TMS was the only thing that really worked. And he described it as having a metal plate being taken off his forehead after his whole life of having it on. And those words basically planted that seed in, and hence doing the therapy. Yeah, the improvements came with the Magvita TMS gradually, I'd say. So I had 3 weeks of it Monday to Friday, 40 minutes of the depression treatment and 15 minutes of the anxiety treatment, which is done on the different sides of the head. But the effects came gradually, so it was almost, I would describe it best as relief, and it took basically the first couple of weeks was up and down. So I saw my mood go up and down and feel kind of half the day would be feeling quite elated and back to normal, back to how I usually feel when I'm healthy and completely non-depressed. And then the other day, half day would be, I'd feel like I was back in it again. So it would jump between the two, which is very, very normal. I hear it's normal to see that in patients. First 2 weeks is up and down. By the end of the third week, it had become more consistent. It was still up and down, but my mood was more normal. So I was spending more time feeling completely myself and completely healthy again. I then had 5 more treatments after the 3 weeks, and I spaced them over 2 weeks, and then I really noticed the relief of all the symptoms, and it was just flat. It was a flat line, so there was no up and down. It was just simply feeling more and more normal. Life after MagVita TMS is amazing. The symptoms of my depression have completely reversed, completely gone. There's a lightness that I feel that I never had before. The ability to make decisions, to communicate with people, that's become incredibly fluid and easy. I feel like it's a 180 in how my mind really works. Almost it feels like rediscovering myself. Sounds very cheesy, right? But I can't really find any other way of putting it, but it is like a 180 in how my mind works. I felt more myself than I've ever felt before. So it's simply incredible. I feel like the areas of the brain that were damaged through this almost psychological trauma, is how I see it, have been completely healed, have been repaired, and I'm back to normal, back to me. So it's incredible, and life is, I'm incredibly excited about life. I'm completely grateful, really, to have the mind I do now after, MagVita TMS. So, because I know how bad it can be. I know how bad a broken brain feels like. So, and what it feels like to have a healthy and healed brain is great. I mean, I couldn't recommend it enough to anyone. It's incredible. Yeah. If you've had clinical depression, if you're already normal, then just keep doing, crack on and keep doing good things.